Welcome back to Digital Photography Tips and Techniques number 2. Well, one of the golden rules is called the rule of thirds. When you look through your camera's viewfinder, imagine that there are lines dividing the image into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. And essentially, it's dividing your image there into these 9 equal shaped blocks. And then frame your subject at one of those intersection points, and you will be following what they call is the rule of thirds. It'll make the photograph much more interesting. Now here's an example of a good use of rule of thirds at the top, and the bottom not so good use of rule of thirds. And you can see how more pleasing the ones at the top look by trying to put the focal point, the interest of the subject into one of those intersecting lines that intersect on one of the third boxes there. Now, Vincent Laforet is one of my favorite photojournalists, and here's some tips he gives us on getting great shots. Number one, pay attention to the light. Always keep your eye close on how the scene is being flooded with light from different angles. The time of the day that you shoot sometimes could be critical. Sometimes photographers will scout out a scenery and look at the light, sort of measuring when they're going to come back and take that light rather than just haphazardly taking it while they're there. They will work things out and come back at just the right time, and you can this way come up with much more dramatic effects. Tip number 2: pay attention to color and form. Even though you're working with perhaps constantly changing subject, that doesn't mean you have to take photographs haphazardly. In this case here, the Olympics, you got the swimmers, you got potentially bad positioning here to get this shot, but you can see Vincent got down and shot up. Therefore, you got that beautiful contrast with the sky and the form of the body as it leaps through the air like that. So keep a close eye on color and a natural geometry of each photograph, and this encompasses the rule of the thirds. Third tip from Vincent is content. While you're looking to make some pleasing photographs, what separates photojournalism from all other types of photography has to do with a focus on content. And, photojournalism, a photograph is often a news or content driven type of a picture, not just a pretty picture, in other words. But that being said, if you can find the balance between the two, content and aesthetics, you can be far ahead of the pack. Well, here's a nice shot all about one of the rules of composition called balance. Achieving good balance in your photograph requires, the correct combination of color, shapes, areas of light and dark to complement each other. And achieving the right balance in your photographs is easier than it appears. But, I think about your subject and capture it from an angle or viewpoint or even a time of day that focuses attention on the subject. Perspective is another important thing. You can see with the picture on the bottom, without the bow of the boat there in the picture, the scene would be far less interesting and void of any drama. So in this case here, a couple of steps back to get that boat in there helps to capture the essence of what you're trying to bring your viewer to experience through the photograph. Draw the viewer's eyes through the photo. And here a path or a row of telephoto poles or a line of chairs at the beach can serve as elements that give you this kind of a diagonal line. Fill the frame. So position yourself at your subject's eye level. When working with kids, try maybe getting down, kneeling down on the floor, get down to their level, and you'll find the pictures will be much fuller and more full of life because of that. Check your corners. Slow motion water. Well, these images here were created by a running water having the aperture stay open for a second or two longer, creating that soft flowing effect of water while all the other elements, of course, because they're not moving, they stay nice and sharp and crisp. And so you can create this painterly effect with moving water by mounting your camera usually on a tripod in this kind of a situation, and then slowing the shutter speed to an exposure of 1 or 2 seconds longer. This is just some more examples of that, showing how the camera was on the tripod. These pictures were taken, and usually, you have an aperture priority setting that you're using here, an f8, f11, f16 if possible, and ideally you'll want an exposure for 1 or second longer to create that flowing effect that we see here. Look for streams and waterfalls that are in the shade instead of the bright sunlight, because sometimes the sunlight can give you too much contrast and then you have a problem still retaining the detail. Well, with these tips in mind, let's go out and shoot and have some fun.